Hello, I'm Chris, this is Gross Models. Today I'm going to be starting the very tiny Bandai Star Destroyer. This is the first, number one in their vehicle model series. So basically nothing on the outside of the box except for advertising part 2. Inside is plastic. Let's get that cut open so we can see what we're dealing with. So only one bag, so it won't take long. Obviously this is the very small Star Destroyer. They don't put a scale on the packet, so I don't know what scale it is. It's very small. This is obviously massive. The actual Star Destroyer themselves, according to the film, vary depending on the class and everything else. So they actually say they can be anything from 1600 to 2900 meters long, apparently. So I'll have a look around and see if I can figure out what the scale is. But basically, we're going through the sprues. We've got the stand, same as ever. We've got what we got, top and a bottom. Basically, a couple of little bits in there as well. There's the back and the bridge part, and that's the other second bit of the superstructure by the looks of it, and the edges, very small thin edges on those. Right, as you say, not many parts, so won't take long to build. Lots of amazing detail on these, as ever in these on the engines. Considering the scale and the size, it's just so impressive. Right, plan is I'll get it all cut off the sprue, stuck together, primed in black and painted in white, which will give us the grey, and then we'll see what we can do. The weathering obviously on this scale is absolutely minute, you won't really see anything, so I think it's basically just going to be painting it all grey and then adding something in for the engines. So probably a very short video. All of the build instructions are just inside the lid there, so it's basically, yeah, I put the edges on, put the bottom on, put them together, put the back on, put the engines on, and then build up the top level. So yeah, won't take long. I'll show you it when it's built. Right, there we have all the pieces. Now let's see what we can do with the instructions. We've got that with the two sides. Now, cunningly, I didn't leave the instructions to tell me which bit was which, so we'll have to see if there are actually any differences, which there obviously are. Let's see, that goes that side. Yep, that does go that side. And then that one will go that side. Okay. That goes there, and that goes inside. With that bit to the front. There we go. All of this is obviously just a snap fit. You don't need to worry about gluing any of it at all, although some of it may take just a little bit, but so far so good. Apart from that front, it's not quite staying shut, so I might give that a little touch in a bit. Right, then we've got the rear just to go in place. Three engines to go into there. Now these I'll be taking back off again to paint, I think. Can't really get around them properly without. So obviously just pushing them in is no trouble at all. And that is pretty much that. I've obviously built the base as well. So got the big bit done. Now we have the tower has these two bits on the side. Just like that. Lining up on the back. Then that goes into the back there. These two side bits go on the sides. As ever, the fit is lovely. You can almost not see the seam lines on these bits that have just gone on there when they're properly pushed in. That bit is a little bit, so that will need a bit of glue on that one as well. There on the front. That's all of that. Right. Then that can go onto the top. Aha. And then the big top bit. We've got the bottom. That one onto there. And that. On there. Yep, that's it for that. Sits on the top. And then with three last tiny bits. Middle bit and the two shield generators. Last one. This is where it goes ping. Oh no, all in and no dropping bits. And there we have it. One Star Destroyer. Lovely. Yeah. Couple of little seam lines in here. Ooh, let me use my new pointing man. There we go. Right, some seam line across here, although that is carried across the actual panel there, so maybe that's deliberate. A couple of bits here that aren't quite right, but yep, I'm happy with that. After a coat of primer, that's probably going to be fine. So I'll get that primed in black and then get it all painted up. So I'll take the engines out and do those separately. They need to be painted separately anyway. So, but yeah, obviously a very quick build, but the detail is still great. So you can see the guns along the side here. I keep forgetting about my little man. Little guns along here, turbo lasers. Yep, I'm happy with that. Right, I'll get that primed and then be back in a sec. And that's it primed. Just done both of them in the matte black. Obviously the stand was black anyway, but looks better in the matte. And the ship itself, I'm always surprised at how good these look when they're done in black. Almost tempted to leave it in black, but obviously not very realistic or wouldn't look good against the Starfield, so I understand why they've done it in grey. But right, once that's dry, I'll get that lightly misted in white and then go a little bit heavier and then a little bit heavier until it's all the right colour. I did leave the engines in because they're going to be white anyway. The insides of them I would need to do in either a white, very bright white, or a pale blue. I think it's going to look better, but everything else is just that light grey. So yeah, leave that to dry and then get it covered in white. There you go. That's let's say the black primer followed by some white to bring it down to the grey. It came out a little bit bright, so I've actually gone over it a bit with some light grey and white mixed with a little bit of airbrush thinner as well, just to make it smooth out a little bit and not leave so many little droplets. Obviously the scale of this is absolutely tiny, so any little drop would be, you know, house sized or something. So I wanted to try and get it as smooth as possible in the finish. There are a couple of drops still, you can see, but not too bad. Weathering again on the scale is going to be very minimal, but I need to do a little bit here and there and tidy up the engines. So I'll leave this to dry and then get to that with the next bit and show you what I'm doing. Right, with all the paint dry, I need to do some detail work and some highlights. There's not going to be much detail you can put on being such a small scale, but I do need to put some white into the engines that I'm then going to add some blue to, and a couple of sort of pinpricks of light along some of the edges. So I'm going to be using some white Vallejo paint in a wet palette. Being a wet palette, you don't need to do any watering down or anything, it sort of waters itself down. So that'll just get me some white paint, and then basically just going to add it into the engine bays. Don't need to be too exact as to how this goes in, because so I'm going to be adding some blue to the ends of it anyway. So I just need to get this in a bit finer in the little engines. It's in there. A bit more in these. It's noticeable how white some of this is, considering most of it was painted in white already, but over the black it really takes a lot more white to make it come through as a pure white rather than a grey. But that's what it's all about. So we'll get this done in there. I'll get these neatened up just on the insides of these, not touching the outsides at all. That's about there. Don't know how well that comes out on film, but yeah, I'll probably need to do another coat of that in a bit, just to try and get that brighter. There's not a lot you can do about white. It's either white or it isn't. You can't make it a brighter white. Might try adding some gloss to it to possibly brighten that up a little bit, but that's sort of what I'm aiming for. Just a bit of a highlight to some of it. As I say, I'm going to be adding some in there, but I need a much finer brush for that. And I also need to get a lot closer to it to see what I'm doing, so I'll be putting on my visor and probably getting in the way of the camera. So let's see how it's going to work. Very, very fine brush, triple O. Just need to, yeah, knock the camera as I said. Right, is that going to be? You can just about see me there. Right, I'm just going to add, say, the barest dots of white just on some of this detail work. It's really not going to be very visible unless you're looking very closely. But that's sort of the point. It's more of a subtle additional, not really windows or anything there. Let's go for there. And a couple of bits in here. It's just a subtle additional highlight. So you can't do anything really in the way of weathering on these because it's such a small scale. I worked it out to be basically 100 times smaller than 144 to 1. So it's actually 14400 or 1 to 14400, which is absolutely tiny. Putting in a few dots and highlights, trying not to be consistent with spacing. Putting in a few, then leaving a bigger gap. Probably not really noticeable, as I say, but it's just about giving the impression rather than too much. I will add a little bit of darkening to some of the back patches as well. Let's get some on the front here as well. So that's off camera, you know you're not going to see anything of that. Just adding a couple of bits. Back isn't anything. Perhaps a couple on the back here. Up there. Well, there you go. I say you're not going to be able to see any of that really, but just adds a little bit of detail work. Can add a bit more to these engines as well, and then come back, as I say, with some blue. Try and fade that in a little bit, and then darken it up a bit more. Right, I'll be back in a sec. That's about it. I've added blue into there. I used a glass paint blue, so it's nice and sort of transparent, comes out well against the white. I have done a dark grey wash, which came out a bit too grey and too dark, so I've actually gone over it again with the white and grey spray, just to sort of lighten it up a little bit more. Some of it's still quite streaky on the underside there, but all in all I'm pretty happy. Oh, I've also done a white inside the landing bay, because I figured that would be sort of a living area, so they get that painted a bit more often. Right, I'm going to do a matte varnish and then call it a day. So I'll get that done and then get it on the turntable and give you a good display of it for the final bit. And that's the completed model. Happy with how it turned out. It's only a tiny little kit and very quick to build. It doesn't take any real work. You could leave it in the plain plastic if you wanted, but obviously painting it gives a better effect. There's not much you can do with variation and paint on such a small scale, but I'm happy with how it's turned out. So the engines look good. There is some slight variation in colour in the panels and everything, so that's about as good as I was expecting it to get. All in all, it's been fun. It doesn't take very long. It's a very quick build on this, and a nice little diversion. So as ever, thanks for watching. Hope you're enjoying the videos I'm putting out, and any comments or anything, obviously leave them in the comments. I'll get back to you when I can. Thanks for watching. Subscribe if you like, and there'll be more to come. Thanks again.